Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri Johnson.
Oh my goodness.
Good morning,
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning to all our viewers out there. We start with oil as always, and oil prices, they've remained in the $70 range. So you're seeing 75.13 for Brent crude. West Texas, as Bimbai mentioned yesterday, Nigeria's benchmark is at 77.96. So we need oil to be much higher. Asia markets trading in a mixed fashion. Remember, Japan was on holiday yesterday, but reopened today for trading. China was up. You see Japan up 1.29. The Kospi was down. Hang Seng up. That's in Hong Kong. Australia was down. Speaking of Australia, I think we go to the Reserve Bank of Australia. They actually held rates at 4.35%. That's their benchmark rate. 8th meeting in a row where they have stayed level. You can see inflation year on year, 2.8%. In the quarter, the most recent third quarter, inflation was at 3.8. So it's actually been slowing. 0.2 month on month. The forecast was for 0.3. Their band is between 2 to 3%. They're saying in fact, everybody's talking about tariffs. They're saying geopolitical and trade warnings, that's their code for talking about tariffs, could actually impact inflation going forward. So that is a nod to whether or not Trump wins. South Korea, we see inflation slowing to a 4-year low. October year on year, 1.3%. It was 1.6 in September. All these numbers just coming in like early this morning. The forecast was for 1.4. As I said, lowest level in about 4 years. Their inflation target is 2. So they are actually undershooting their inflation target. We move on from South Korea to Boeing. Remember Dr. Bati mentioned this a day or two ago. So they've actually ended their strike now. That officially came in. 59% voted in favor of ending the strike. They get a sweet 38% salary increase, almost 40% staggered over the next 4 years. Their performance bonus gets restored. They even get a $12,000 ratification bonus just for putting all this together. The workers' rights in America is something else. This is, of course, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. We've been talking about tariffs. I don't know whether this was planted, but this just came out this morning from the National Retail Foundation, a day just as Americans are going to vote. They put out a report, the estimated impacts of proposed tariffs. So they talked about apparel, toys, furniture, household appliances, footwear, travel, goods. And so there's a chart here where they've gained some scenarios. So if you look at this chart, you've got the current scenario, which is, what is that, gray. You've got scenario A, which is black, and scenario B, which is red. So in each case, you can see what would happen to the cost of apparel, the cost of footwear, furniture. So just to read the paragraph beneath, the increases in tariffs resulting from Trump's proposal would be dramatic for all categories examined, which are the bars you're seeing at the top. Total average tariffs would exceed 50% in the extreme tariff scenario, up in most cases from single or low double digits currently, even accounting for alternative sources of supply and potential new U.S. production, because the whole point is to boost local production so you don't have to pay those tariffs. These 6 product categories would also reduce American consumer spending power by about between $46 to $78 billion if those tariffs are put into effect. So that's from them. And then I think for Nigeria, we had an appointment from President Tinubu in the value chain, presidential value chain, healthcare value chain initiative. Dr. Abdul Mukhtar, he's the new national coordinator. And if you look at the targets of what this healthcare value chain, what he's going to be coordinating, basically, that's the president. It's PVAC, Presidential Unlocking Healthcare Value Chain. It's domiciled under the Federal Ministry of Health. They're going to seeking to unlock investments in the healthcare value chain. They want to reduce medical tourism, increase jobs. We did speak to him on the Global Business Report. So he talked specifically about the amount of funds they've been able to mobilize, and then had a message for any entrepreneurs who are out there and have any ideas to improve healthcare. Let's take a listen to what he said.
So what we've been doing in the last couple of months is mobilizing various pools of funds. I'm happy to say, give examples, with Afrexim Bank, we have actually have an arrangement for a $1 billion pool of money, basket of money, just to address, different concerns. So this money can come in the form of loans, in the form of equity, in the form of guarantees, in the form of technical assistance that will be available to these entrepreneurs. We've similarly talked to the European Investment Bank, through a program that they call the Human Development Accelerator. We have actually, again, mobilized, it's about €1 billion pool of funds. So we're looking at funding, but we're also looking at our local financiers, right? We're talking to the Bank of Industry, we're talking to the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Ministry of Finance Incorporated, just to design solutions. So our commitment to Nigerians is, if you have a viable, feasible and bankable project in the healthcare sector, then money should not be a problem. And this is the commitment that we're making because we feel that we have various instruments, the SMEs. For example, we're also designing instruments that will target specifically small businesses in this sector.
Point out that money is not free. So he did point that out, but the clip was getting too long. So it's not a grant. So if you have a good idea, you get a loan, but you have to pay the money back provided it's viable. That is our updates for today. It's election day in the US.
It's election day in the US. A couple of things. So, I mean, what about other schemes we've had to be able to inject money into the healthcare sector? I know they did one during COVID. Where are all those PPE? Where are all those materials? Those hospital beds, those gurneys, those, what's it called, breathalyzers to stabilize your breathing system, the oxygen infrastructure during COVID. Because we thought after COVID, that should have fed into the healthcare system.
Under the Buhari administration.
Under the Buhari administration. So there was a lot of injection. But this is a welcome development. But we need to take account of the things that happened during COVID, the investment made in the healthcare sector during COVID. Secondly, as regards tariff, you see, the funny thing is, Trump will just say anything to be a populist and to be a nationalist. But in the end, it's going to come back and bite him. We've all seen this tariff story. History teaches us about something called the Corn Laws in England back in the 1800s. That was what led to the starting of The Economist magazine. Because the likes of the Walter Bagehot's of this world, that has a column in The Economist called Bagehot today, protested against the Corn Laws. And this was what led to thinking of, very liberal economists in thinking that you cannot just be nationalist and constrict everything. You need to be able to trade across board with people.
Exactly.
This was what gave the rise to the thinking of the likes of Bastiats of this world. So it is not possible, it never works, and it's just going to increase the inflation that they are grappling with in America.
And they've been cutting rates, which means the Fed will now start hiking rates again.
And guess what? This Trump lied so much to the extent that he even lied at a rally that they will not pay income taxes again. That was going to use the money he gets from tariffs
to cover that,
up. Income tax is about 4.5 trillion, like I said yesterday. I mean, let's not allow politicians deceive us with all sorts of very nefarious lies. And it's dangerous what he's saying.
But he has a good chance of winning.
That's the sad reality. Like all nationalists have a good chance of winning. You forget that Hitler too was heavily voted in and endorsed.
That is correct.
On that note,
that is correct.
I'm still looking at the tariffs and, just trying to bring the conversation home as much as possible because I then discovered that AGOA, which is the African Growth Opportunity Act, is actually going to be expiring in 2025. So it needs to go through the legislative process again. So as much as we're focusing on the presidential election, what happens in Congress is very important with regards to legislation around tariffs that impact Africa directly. So, of course, to those who may not be aware, AGOA allows us to export, about 6,800 different types of products to the United States, duty-free, tariff-free, unlimited amount of exports as well. There's no cap on that. So I think as much as, there's a lot of big expressions being made, big declarations and promises being made, I think it's a reminder of two things. Number one, a reminder that, it's not a presidential, tariffs aren't increased by presidential order. Right. It needs to go through Congress, and Congress, just as tight as the presidential race is looking, Congress is also looking very tight. We don't know who's going to control the House. Exactly. So, there's that conversation to be had. Then the second conversation to be had is, are we as Africans, as much as we are excited about this election, the whole world is excited about the election, but are we as Africans really sort of dissecting the policy elements that affect us directly, or are we just kind of just getting, caught up in the euphoria and the emotion and the grandeur? It's almost like a Hollywood movie that the U.S. election is. I think that's a conversation that I'd like to have.
Just to point out, during his first term of the Biden administration, Kamala Harris did visit Africa. So went to Ghana, a couple other countries. So she did, and I think there was, I mean, of course, President Tinubu did have a conversation with Joe Biden just a couple of days ago. So if the administration stays in power, which Kamala Harris is seen as Biden 2.0, AGOA would be renewed, and the conversation with Africa, I think it would.
Economic nationalism on both sides.
You have a good point. I think it would. But Dr. Abasi,
all eyes on U.S. elections.
Yes, sir.
Today is, American election, a choice between the first black woman in a historical manner to run for to seek the presidency of the United States, and his competitor, a former president, whose own former officials have described as a fascist. Yes. We're told it's, down to the wire. It's dead heat. Financial Times tells us, well, Americans will be the ones to decide. However, if you look at the markets had the calm before the storm, over the weekend. But as at yesterday, trading this morning, all the three major indexes lost something. That's right. Dow Jones 0.28%, S&P 500 also lost, and then the Nasdaq Composite also lost. Now the dollar is also drooping. Treasury yields are going up. The betting games are going on with most of the betting investors and financial analysts expecting that it will be Trump, and what the implications of that will be. Oil, yes, went up after OPEC said that they were going back on, their plans for December. But as of this morning, it's gone down again. Brent crude has gone down by 13%, WTI by 13%. Now, so that's the global reaction to this election today. But the big question is to ask, what is the implication for Nigeria? Yes, sir. Because I saw a piece that someone wrote, an informed piece, I guess, even if he ended up saying, well, he was speculating, nothing is certain, about how a Trump presidency will affect the fortunes of the Naira or the Nigerian economy, or how a Harris presidency will affect. Now, the simple thing is that we have a very difficult situation on our hands in Nigeria. Our deregulation, our devaluation, all of these things have brought us immediate pain. Yep. Now, if you have a Trump, the sum of that analysis is that it's going to get worse. Because under Trump, you are going to have a lot of protectionism. You are going to have trade tariffs going up against China. And if that happens, there will be global trade recalibration. And all of this would affect not just Nigeria, but other countries. But the issue will also be about investment. Is Trump likely to be investment friendly towards countries that he considers that? What did he call it?
curse on it.
No, I don't want to use that phrase. Whatever he called us. So these are some of the implications. Yeah. But my major takeaway in the piece that I read, I think it was in Nairametrics 2 days ago, is that, look, a lot will depend on how Nigeria organizes its own affairs. Which takes me to the point that she was making, that we think that this is a Nollywood event. But we here, in Africa, in other parts of the world, should begin to think ahead. However, in China, the National People's Council is meeting this week. They are already, as of yesterday, trying to help local governments to raise their debt limits. But something interesting is happening in China. What they call Singles Day. It started in the middle of October, October 14. Yes. It was introduced by Alibaba in 2008. Now, this Singles Day is for single people. I hope it's a festival for singles. And what we have seen from the analysis is that these singles, again, this ties to the Chinese economy that is weakening. Yes. In terms of demand, consumer demand shows a pattern that people are not just buying. They are trying to buy in a way that shows investment. Indeed. But I hope that we also have a Singles Day so that all bachelors and spinsters can go out there and make economic decisions. Indeed, but that's on the lighter side. Yes, sir. In Australia, they are keeping rates steady at 4.25%. Yep. And the argument is that it's better to be cautious than to just raise expectations.
Indeed.
But it's that Singles Day. I like.
We know.
Dr. Amasi, thank you.
Rotus, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you. Thank you so much for that great round of